University of Amsterdam, right? And actually, my first studies were econometrics, and then she was one of the first doing research on entrepreneurship. And PhD, this was a very early time, and nobody else did it. So we were one of the very early entrants in the field, already in the early 90s. And right now, she's founding academic director of the Amsterdam Center of Entrepreneurship since 2006, and she's full professor of entrepreneurship and organization also at the University of Amsterdam since 2005. But she also holds a couple of international positions. For instance, she's crown member of the Socioeconomic Council and adjunct professor of entrepreneurship in Oslo, Norway. And she has a couple of very influential publications in the field. She's published in small business economics and management science, the Journal of Business Management, and Journal of Economic Psychology, and so on. Yeah, so we are very happy to have Miriam here. The same applies to Peter. He originates from agricultural economics originally, which is interesting for me because I have this research group, this research group with the ag economy here at the faculty. On entrepreneurship and farming, actually. Therefore, there's actually some interesting overlap here. I'll try to do more fun power source like this. Then Peter has been doing his PhD at the University of Florida, and he was teaching at Florida International University, and he's at the Wiesleda, is that correct?
As far as I know.
Business school at Emory University in Atlanta. And he's also publishing very influential stuff on entrepreneurship, but he only recently moved into the field. It's already influential, which is also, I think, something very good we can say. And he's more of a modeler, so that we get some different perspectives. I think that the two are very complementary. I'm not saying that it's not interesting to modeling, but there's some complementarity here. I think it's a very nice addition. And I think even though right now it's mostly my own people that are sitting here, we will enjoy a lot. And I hope that some people will wake up during the day and show up. And right now, I'm just happy that we are here and you are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, all students, I guess that's why you're here all the time. So how many of you are still looking for how to write a thesis dissertation and still wondering about what topics you might work on? How many of you are in that situation? Most of you have topics or master's students, do you want to have? everybody is equally able in wage work, and some are more gifted managers. He talks about managers, but since he published this, it's become a bit about entrepreneurship as well. Some are more gifted than others. So it's a very simple selection mechanism, and there's a power and people with ability above this level become managers, and people with ability below this level become wage workers. Very simple model. And you might say, how can you publish a famous paper with such a simple idea? He's really interested in what implications that simple model has for how firms grow when a country develops. What he finds, for example, is that as you increase the capital labor ratio, then firms become larger, which shows that this is a phenomenon of development. So he has many other issues, many other questions he's interested in. Hill's one of the thoughts is about risk aversion. In their model, everybody differs by the degree of risk aversion. So suppose you thought about certainty equivalence. What is the certainty equivalent pay you would need to justify risky activity in entrepreneurship as opposed to less risky wage work? And there's going to be a cutoff point here where everybody who's less risk averse, who requires a small certainty equivalent payoff to compensate themselves for the extra risk, become entrepreneurs, the rest become wage workers. And we have Holmes and Schmidt. Now, Holmes and Schmidt is a little bit different because they're everybody's equally gifted in managing the firm, but they vary in ability to create a firm. So there what we have is those with high ability in firm creation become entrepreneurs. And the remainder become managers. There's no employees in Holmes and Schmidt. The reason I start out with this is that all three of these make the same prediction about entrepreneurial performance, and that is that they all predict that entrepreneurs earn more than wage workers. In the real business of smart people, in Thompson and the farms, what we require is compensation for the additional risks, so your average earnings have to be higher. And in Thompson Schmidt, the smart people become entrepreneurs again. So they all the problem is almost no data is consistent with that basic precept. If that's not true, then none of these models can be right. And this is I like to say it's a classic graph, and it's classic primarily because every entrepreneurship paper I presented, I start out with this graph. So I think I single-handedly named Thompson's figure 1 a classic. I've been asked by my co-authors not to do it anymore because I have seen it, but I love this graph because it shows us so much. First of all, so what happens was he uses the study of income and program participation, which is a panel study of fairly young people skewed a little towards lower income earners. And it was intended to collect data on people who might get access to sort of experimental welfare payments and things like that. And to be able to sort of do policy evaluations. What he does is he follows these people over a 2-year period. This is simply a cross-sectional distribution of self-employed and wage earners. And what we see very clearly is that in the cross-section, the median income of entrepreneurs is way low. Incidentally, throughout the next 2 days, you will hear self-employed, business owners, and entrepreneurs, and largely because of the nature of the data that we use, going to treat these as pretty much the same thing. Because we're going to be interested in high-tech and in the low-tech self-employed. So I already annoy a few people. I am fearing them, but I'm definitely going to annoy a few of you by referring to self-employed, then calling them entrepreneurs, then calling them self-employed, and we will show that there are some empirically testable implications. If you face that off against an alternative theory, there are some empirically testable implications from saying people might be their own boss. And there's an enormous amount of evidence that that is true. So we're going to look at those two first. Then we're going to look at frictions within the flow. It may well be that one of the reasons entrepreneurs appear to learn less is that they couldn't find the right job when they were in waiting. It's a very frictional, very noisy labor market, and they were poorly managed. And when we talk about mismanaging, the trouble with having 2 days worth of slides, you sometimes wonder which bit of the animation is coming up next. Well, I'm going to apologize for that. I was up at 5 going through this one. So, when we talk about high dimensions of ability, there's some very important policy-related questions, and that is, are entrepreneurs born while they make? That is becoming an entrepreneur a result of flexibility or genetic, perhaps, your environment as a child, in childhood, or can it be nurtured at a later stage? And there are a number of questions here, and we're going to be talking about these. Nature or nurture, that are entrepreneurs born or made. Perhaps more relevant to the policy is, can entrepreneurs be taught? And then what are the terms to accumulate human capital, and then applying it to entrepreneurship relative to applying this to wage work. So these are all fundamentally important applied policy questions. And if we can understand more about what it is about these variations in ability that we see in the data, we might be able to devise some better policies and some better education programs. On the mismatching may take the form of mismatching of workers to jobs or entrepreneurs to businesses. And these are going to have distinct implications for what they predict about performance, what they predict about who becomes entrepreneurs. And then finally, maybe this last session, tomorrow, we'll look at the nature of ability when you form teams. Is forming a team greater than some of its parts? Or is it somehow less? Do you want to form a team of people who understand each other and very similar, or who span different skills? So these are the questions that we're going to look at. So we're going to start out today by looking at skills and preferences. Now, the starting point here is Nazir's theory of jack of all trades. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this theory. In Nazir's theory is that there's more than one attribute of skill. And if you want to become an entrepreneur, you have to basically have skills in every attribute. Even if you can hire people to do various things for you, you have to be skillful enough to know who to hire, how to monitor them, how to evaluate whether they're doing a good job. If you're going to contract out to suppliers, you need to be able to understand the contracts, understand the technology in order to evaluate costs and prices and so forth. So there's a lot of different skills you need, whereas in wage work, people tend to specialize, they tend to compartmentalize themselves, and leave it to the managers or the entrepreneurs to sort of bridge the disparate knowledge across individuals. So he says that this is a defining characteristic of entrepreneurship. And it turns out that it has important implications for learning, for both the variance learning, the relationship between skills and entrepreneurship. But it turns out that there is an alternative view that predicts very similar behavior. And this alternative view is that some people get bored really easily. And so they want to switch what they're doing. And they change jobs a lot, they change professions, they change industries, and they like running their own businesses because of the variety that it entails. So this is what we call a taste of variety. And so in a recent paper with Tom and I tried to sort of investigate the empirical implications it takes to variety, and compare that with the Lucia's theory. So let's take a look at the Lucia's model. Very simple model. The reproduction technology is limited, but you have two skills, X and Y, both the name of the skill and the amount of that skill you have. So if you become a specialist, you specialize in the skill and what you've got most skill in. I started out as an assistant to pig farmer. I found I wasn't very good at that, so I switched to academia. It turns out that you need less skill to be an academic. So if you're a specialist, you want the maximum of X or Y. If you're an entrepreneur, you're constrained by the skill that you're not very good at. That's the one that keeps growing. So as an entrepreneur, you run the minimum. But if production technology was the maximum of X or Y, or the minimum of X or Y, everyone would do the maximum. So in front of the production technology for the entrepreneur, we have around what Lucia calls the premium to entrepreneurship. It doesn't actually translate into a wage premium, as we'll see. But that number must be greater than 1, otherwise nobody will become an entrepreneur. And the amount of that number is going to, turns out, you have to have the landlord will set an equilibrium to equate the relative supply and demand for entrepreneurs. So, you choose entrepreneurship if the payoff of being an entrepreneur is greater than the payoff from being a specialist. Or very simple.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I have a question about this is for the individual entrepreneurs, or is it in a group? If two entrepreneurs make it,
Yeah, so in Lucia's paper, let me talk about Lucia first and then answer your question. In Lucia's paper, he has, in his appendix, he has sort of much richer underlying production technology that sort of captures this. And in his paper, he only has a single entrepreneur, that entrepreneur has employees, but the productivity of the employees boils down to just depend on the skill of the entrepreneur. So they can be an entrepreneur with an equilibrium number of employees, and his theory can say something about firm size. Now, so he never deals with the idea of entrepreneurial teams. So that I'm good at X, you're good at Y, and why don't we get together? And so suppose we were able to do that, but there was a sort of communication cost. So you could enrich this theory by saying you could overcome this constraint by forming teams, but those teams would involve some costs, and those costs could be communication, they could be more organized, monitoring each other, and the various incentives we have to avoid free riding. So it comes with a cost. So you could add that in as a further possibility, but that's not addressed in this theory. So there is some work on teams and moving we'll talk about whether you could undermine an awful lot of what Lucia says. Say, look, an awful lot, especially in high tech, where you really do need multiple skills. I don't think, for example, if you're going to become a gardener, you need to be that good at accounting. You just need to be able to count your money at the end of the week. So maybe a lot of Lucia's theory would be undermined by showing you that we have a randomness by forming teams in high tech, which we know is something. So here's a graphical representation on the horizontal axis. We have your skill in X that range from 0 to X over the bar, and the vertical axis your skill in Y. Now, there are a set of isomorphs, each of those are paired. So if you look at the top pair of isomorphs, the black isomorph is the amount of X, various amounts of X and Y consistent with a constant level of output in wage work, and the red one is consistent with a constant level of output, the same level of output in entrepreneurship. So if the isomorph lies below, whichever isomorph lies closest to the origin is the one that's the best choice. You need less ability to earn the same amount. And so what we see is where these intersect along those ranges. So what the theory predicts is that all the entrepreneurs If one skill is very different from another, then they'll specialize in their skill. If they're not that different, then they'll say, well, I get that premium. And at times my worst skill will be better than my best skill, if the skills aren't too different. So what we find is that entrepreneurs tend to have more balanced skills than specialists. But what does it say about earnings? A strange thing about this paper, he's written 2 papers on this, is that he never actually says what are the implications for earnings in this model. So we have to figure this out for ourselves. So what it means for average earnings, of course, depends on what is the distribution in the population of the 2 skills. And this is one of the problems. An awful lot of theories, I'll just come back because this is a point that really irritates me when I see a lot of papers, is you can do this and then make some statements about the distribution of earnings. But almost every time somebody makes those statements, they're assuming that in any data set, people are scattered all over the place. This is particularly the case for Thompson. There are 2 theories, 1990 and 1995. And they show that people up here become entrepreneurs, people down here buy businesses, people over here are employees, managers. And then they make statements about incomes. Well, some of those cells are empty in the data set. So we have to make assumptions about the distribution. So to make the points I want to make here, I'm going to assume, because it's easy, that X and Y are uniformly distributed. Anywhere in the square is equally densely represented in the population. And let's define the order statistic. So theta subscript 1 is the smallest of 2 abilities, theta of X and Y, and theta subscript 2 is the larger of X and Y. Here's an amazing thing, that when I then try to work out what is the joint distribution of those order statistics, it turns out that the joint distribution is the number 2, which blew me away. I thought that was such a cool distribution. So the joint distribution of the minimum and maximum of 2 uniformly distributed numbers is 2. Defined over theta 1 goes from 0 up to theta 2, and theta 2 goes from theta 1 up to 1. So, given that, I can work out what is the expected earnings of entrepreneurs. So their expected earnings is the distribution of all pairs of X and Y up to the point where lambda theta 1 is greater than theta 2. So not up to the point of all the agents for which that distributes the ones that become entrepreneurs. Lambda times their worst skill must be greater than their best skill, which is what they learn as specialists. So we can work out very simply that what their earnings are. And we can do the same for wage workers. And what we find is that what we see is theory predicts, the jack of all trades theory, predicts that entrepreneurs earn more than average, which is what we objected to at the start. Okay, so there's another theory that says entrepreneurs earn more. Now, you could modify that by changing the distribution. If you took away a lot of the smart entrepreneurs, for example, and said there's in that upper right diagonal of that box, I suppose there's not many people who live there. Then of course you could change this result. But if we don't play around with the distribution, we let everybody populate, then this is what we do. But there's another interesting one. We can work out what are the earnings of having balanced skills. And the punchline here is that if you're an entrepreneur, you earn more if you have balanced skills. The skill balance is irrelevant if you're a wage worker. So among entrepreneurs, we define skill balance as a statistical range, just the difference between your best and your worst skill. And then we can try and work out as we reduce that skill balance, as we increase the balance, what happens to earnings. So the way I do it here is I add in an auxiliary parameter beta into the entrepreneurial. If I set beta equal to 1, that replicates previous X. And then as I increase beta, it restricts the set where we're integrating over to people with more similar skills. And so what happens is we increase beta. And as we increase beta, we find was that people who wanted to become business owners were investing in balancing out their skill sets. If they were really good at sort of operations research, then they would take courses in accounting to get that, knowing that they wanted to become entrepreneurs. He also looked at maybe they were doing on-the-job learning. So if they had lots of different types of jobs, different roles in their profession before they became entrepreneurs, then they were also more likely to become an entrepreneur. So the first one's not about probability of becoming an entrepreneur. And Joe came back to using German data, the large, what was the name of the panel data set that Joe used? What's that?
German sociology.
Okay, right. That's the one we use this one. I never get an answer to that before. It's my last time. How pleasant. That they are much more likely to have previously changed professions. And so that's the existing data. The trouble with that is all of those behaviors are predicted by a model that has nothing to do with that. So, just to see how this is the case, in the paper that Tom and I did, the way we have presented it is very different from the way I'm going to present. I'm going to present some simulation results. In the paper, it's sort of tedious analytical stuff that we do. So suppose you have this idea that people like variety. They seek out their experiences at school. They may do chemistry and learn to play the piano. Keeps them alive, keeps them interested. They change their jobs a lot. They work on lots of different research topics, and they're attracted to entrepreneurship because of this variety. What this means is that choosing variety indicates a preference for that. And if you have that preference, you get utility out of doing different things. Then you are willing to forego some equilibrium, some learnings to be able to do that. So in equilibrium, with the taste of variety, we should see variety as associated with low values. But the Jack Wolf says, and particularly the Zier's interpretation of it, says that variety in schooling and in early careers reflects investment in the balancing of skills, and more balanced skills increases your earnings and entrepreneurship. So in the Jack Wolf theory, previous variety is associated with high earnings. And so that's going to be a real contrast between preferences and ability and distribution of ability.
When you test those two theories against each other, is there a way to make sure that there's not another set of expectations? One would be linguistics advices around overconfidence, availability bias, representative biases, and then also the more traditional theory of risk-taking behavior, which we all know is wrong. The preference is that risk-taking is not characterized, but it's not easy to find it with large data sets because it's
Well, there are serious constraints and challenges. One is that none of these theories are mutually exclusive. The second is when we think about attitudes to risk. Attitudes to risk are probably associated with the taste of variety. I